Have you ever walked into a crowded place, a cafe buzzing with conversation, a busy train station, or a park filled with people, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, you felt calm? Not lonely, not awkward, just quietly comfortable. You find a seat, maybe with a coffee in your hand. People move around you. Conversations blur into background noise. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, you feel strangely at peace. Now here's the interesting part. Most people assume that if you enjoy being alone in a crowd, something must be off. Maybe you're antisocial. Maybe you're shy. Maybe you just don't know how to connect. But psychology tells a very different story. For some people, being alone in a crowd is one of the most mentally satisfying states the human brain can experience. It's a moment where solitude and connection exist at the same time. You're surrounded by humanity, yet you still have your own mental space. And if you're someone who enjoys this feeling, your brain may be wired in a fascinating way. Think about it for a moment. There's a big difference between being alone at home and being alone in public. When you're at home by yourself, your brain enters what psychologists call a low stimulation environment. It's quiet, predictable, and under your control. But when you're alone in a crowd, something else happens. Your brain receives constant signals of life around you: movement, voices, laughter, footsteps, distant music. It's a gentle hum of human activity, yet none of it demands anything from you. You're present, but not responsible, observing, but not participating. It's like sitting beside a river. The water flows past you, but you don't have to jump in. For many people, this state feels deeply relaxing. In psychology, there's a concept called optimal stimulation. Every brain has a level of stimulation it prefers. Too little feels boring, too much feels stressful. People who enjoy crowds but also value solitude often sit right in the middle of that spectrum. Total isolation can feel dull. Loud social interaction can feel exhausting. But being quietly alone in a lively environment, that's the sweet spot. Your brain gets just enough stimulation to stay engaged, but not so much that it becomes overwhelmed. And that's why you might find yourself doing things that confuse other people. Sitting alone in a busy cafe for hours, walking through crowded streets without needing to talk to anyone, going to a public place just to read, think, or observe. To someone else, it might look lonely. To you, it feels peaceful. But there's another psychological layer to this. People who enjoy being alone in crowds often have highly observant minds. Instead of focusing only on conversation, their attention spreads outward. They notice small details others miss: the rhythm of people walking past, the tone of someone's laughter, the way strangers interact. Your brain becomes something like a quiet documentary filmmaker, constantly collecting scenes from everyday life. And here's the fascinating part. This kind of observation activates areas of the brain linked to creativity and reflection. Writers, artists, and deep thinkers have long been known to seek environments like this. Ernest Hemingway famously wrote in cafés. Many philosophers preferred busy public squares. Because something magical happens when you're surrounded by life, but not directly involved in it. Your mind starts wandering. Ideas connect. Thoughts expand. You begin reflecting on things you might never notice in a silent room. Crowds, in a strange way, can become fuel for introspection. But the psychology goes even deeper. There's also a subtle sense of belonging that happens in these moments. Humans are social creatures. Our brains evolved to feel safe when other humans are nearby. In ancient times, being alone in the wilderness could be dangerous. But being near a group, even strangers, signaled safety. That ancient wiring still exists inside your brain today. So when you sit quietly in a crowded space, something interesting happens neurologically. Your brain registers the presence of others as a form of security.
You're part of the tribe without needing to perform for it. No expectations, no pressure to entertain anyone, no social role to maintain, just quiet coexistence. And for many people, that balance is incredibly comforting. But there's another reason some people gravitate toward being alone in crowds. It gives them control over their social energy. Let's be honest, interacting with people requires mental effort. You're processing words, reading facial expressions, responding emotionally. It's a complex dance your brain performs every second during conversation. For individuals who are more reflective or introverted, that dance can become draining over time. Not because they dislike people, but because their minds process social information deeply. Being alone in a crowd lets them take a break from that dance without disconnecting from the human world entirely. It's like sitting on the edge of a swimming pool with your feet in the water. You're still part of the environment, but you're not fully submerged. And that balance can feel incredibly refreshing. Interestingly, research on personality psychology suggests that people who enjoy this state often score high in something called openness to experience. This trait is linked to curiosity, imagination, and deep thinking. Instead of needing constant interaction, their brains enjoy exploring ideas, emotions, and observations internally. A crowded space becomes a canvas for the mind.
Every stranger is a story waiting to be imagined. You might find yourself wondering where someone is going, what their life is like, what they're thinking about. Your brain naturally drifts into reflection. In a way, crowds become mirrors that reflect the complexity of humanity back to you. But here's the part that many people misunderstand. Enjoying solitude in crowds doesn't mean you dislike people. In fact, it often means the opposite. You appreciate human presence, just without constant conversation. You enjoy watching the rhythm of life unfold. Think about the last time you sat somewhere busy, maybe a mall, a park bench, or a train platform. Did you notice how every person had somewhere to go? A story, a worry, a plan, a memory? Thousands of lives moving past each other, each carrying their own invisible universe. For people who enjoy being alone in crowds, that realization can feel oddly beautiful. You become aware of something bigger than yourself. And strangely enough, that awareness can reduce feelings of loneliness. Because loneliness isn't always about being physically alone. Loneliness is about feeling disconnected. And when you sit in a crowd and quietly observe humanity, you're reminded that you're part of the same strange, complicated species. Everyone around you is thinking, feeling, struggling, hoping, just like you. There's a quiet comfort in that, almost like being a single star in a sky full of stars. But here's something else worth mentioning.
Modern life often pushes people toward extremes, either constant social interaction through messages, notifications, and conversations, or total isolation behind screens. The quiet middle ground, being alone among others, is becoming rare. Yet psychologically, it may be one of the healthiest states for the mind. It allows reflection without loneliness, connection without pressure. Your brain can breathe. And maybe that's why certain places feel so appealing to people who understand this instinctively. Libraries, cafés, parks, train stations, airports. Spaces where life flows around you while you remain still. It's almost meditative. You're not escaping the world. You're simply observing it. And observation is one of the most powerful tools for understanding both others and yourself. Because when your mind isn't busy performing socially, it begins asking deeper questions. Why do people behave the way they do? Why do certain moments feel meaningful? What truly matters in life? Crowds, oddly enough, can trigger these reflections more than silence ever could. So if you're someone who enjoys sitting quietly in busy places, if you've ever felt strangely comfortable being alone in a crowd, there's nothing strange about you. Your brain might simply be wired for observation, reflection, and balanced stimulation. You found a space where solitude and society coexist, a place where your thoughts can wander freely while the world moves around you. And in a world that constantly demands attention, reaction, and noise, that ability is actually quite rare, maybe even a kind of quiet intelligence. So the next time you find yourself sitting alone in a crowded cafe, watching people pass by while your mind drifts through its own thoughts, remember this: you're not disconnected from the world. You're simply experiencing it in a different way. And sometimes the deepest understanding of humanity comes not from being in the center of the conversation, but from sitting quietly at the edge, observing the story unfold. And now I'm curious, are you someone who enjoys being alone in crowds? Or do you prefer complete solitude? Let me know what your mind feels in those moments, because understanding how our minds interact with the world around us might be one of the most fascinating journeys we can take.